Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome into episode 27 of Justified Pursuit. Cable Smith here, as always, alongside my co-host Chisum Cook. Counselor, how are you? We got an exciting guest here today, but how are you doing, man?
Doing all right. We're getting rain, which we need pretty badly.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. Um, you know, as far as current events and what's going on in the world, it's no crazier today than it was a week ago, or no more sane today than it was a week ago.
Right.
Really excited to be talking to Michael. We were just talking
Yeah.
offline, and I was telling him how I've been a fan of his since I saw that first viral Instagram post that went out there. I think it was Instagram where he was butchering a hindquarter in the window of his restaurant,
Yeah.
just because there were people outside protesting the fact that he was doing it, and I
Yeah.
thought that was
Well,
awesome.
so hey, you brought him up. You do the introduction. I usually do the intros, but
Yeah, I mean, you've talked to him a few times, but we've got Michael Hunter on, aka the Hunter Chef.
yeah.
Pretty sweet little synchronicity that your last name's Hunter, man.
I got lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess Michael runs a restaurant up in Ontario province, right?
Yep.
What's is it?
We're in Toronto, so
Toronto,
we're
okay,
Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Yeah,
Right, yeah. Called the Antler, I believe, right? And
Yep.
you guys specialize in wild game? Is that like
so yeah,
a
we're
big part of the
all
menu? Or?
a big part of our ethos is just we want to celebrate wild food and just real
Awesome.
food, whether that's wild salmon or ethically caught swordfish, wild mushrooms. But our laws, much like yours, we have to sell farmed game, so I can't
Right.
go shoot something and drag it in. So we support. There's a lot of local farmers that we buy our game animals from.
Yeah.
So that's our theme.
Cool. Yeah. If I make it up that way, I will definitely be stopping in. But as I mentioned, I've got your cookbook. Go ahead. What's I have it, but I don't know the name off the top of my head. What's the name of the cookbook?
It's titled the Hunter Chef Cookbook.
Hunter Chef
Yeah.
Cookbook. That's pretty
Awesome.
simple. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So he put this video. He had some vegan demonstrators outside of his facility, and so rather than cow to the mob, Michael took a hindquarter from, I guess it looked like some venison, a deer. Yeah, deer,
Yeah.
and butchered it at the window on a table for everyone to see, and went viral. I think you ended up on Rogan, right? On the Joe Rogan
Yep.
Experience from it, and Cable's had him on the Lone Star Outdoor Show at least once or maybe twice. And now you're sort of a known thing, and rightfully so, and representing the hunting community of Canada in general, I would think, in a real and authentic way. And man, I just appreciate the hell out of it, and we're glad to have you on to tell us a little bit about the crazy stuff going on in your province.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
I have a question for you, Michael. Do you ever regret I mean, it was clearly an antagonistic move, which, I mean, they're provoking you, right? Do you ever regret that? I mean, personally, I don't think I would, but I wonder if you do.
In the very beginning, I thought I screwed us because it didn't go viral for about 3 days. So within that 3-day period, the video was actually taken by the vegan demonstrator. So it went on their sites first. So it was going around the world and all these vegan, pro-vegan chat, rooms and things like that. And we were just getting hammered online. They were attacking our ratings on Google, Facebook, telling us, telling everyone that we're a terrible restaurant and stuff like that. So in the very beginning, I kind of thought, that was dumb. And then when
the tide shifted.
Then the tide shifted, and we just had this wave of support. It's one of those things that you don't ever plan on. You hear these stories and people going viral, and then when you experience it yourself, it's a lot different. And it's not fun. I don't necessarily love being in the spotlight. I'm not that kind of guy. So it was difficult, especially when they're attacking your family, they're attacking you personally, they're attacking your business, trying to actively shut you down. It was a lot of stress and not a lot of fun. We had a lot of interaction with the police that were on our side, just trying to keep the peace, and they were really sympathetic to us because we're just in like any other business,
just trying to make a living.
Trying to make a living. And we were across the street from a butcher shop and a fishmonger, and there was restaurants all along our strip. And they just targeted us because of my last name and because of what I support. They came after us. They thought we'd be an easy target, and that backfired. real bad. So
yeah. Yeah. So I think I saw on your social media stuff, have you been turkey hunting? What have you been doing
so
this spring?
I got really
Was
fortunate with the book.
Was that in Canada?
No. So our turkey season opens on Sunday. So
so I thought the border was closed. That's where I was going with this.
Yeah, it is. It's really so. United States is letting Canadians in.
We just
Canada
can't
is
come
not
visit
letting
you.
Americans in. Yeah,
You bastards.
yeah, I know. And my dad and I have a lot of family in the States. They recently moved from California to Arizona, so they can't come here, which is really sad.
Yeah.
So I was in Nashville turkey hunting with Danielle Pruitt with Meat Eater and Ryan O'Callahan. They're filming a new series for YouTube. Yeah. So it was really great experience. Had a lot of fun. I kind of got lucky and shot a young Tom / Super Jake on the first day, which was yeah, it was good, man. Like little tiny nub spurs and like a 3.5-inch beard, and weight it was probably in the 15-16 pound kind of category. It was nice bird, real tender. So
that's cool.
I'm not gonna when we're only there for a couple of days, I'm not gonna let a young Tom walk by. So
right
yeah, I can't. It's not like
we're doing really well on the turkey population. So Tom here, Jake here and there is not going to not doing any harm. So
I've had
really
3 bear hunts
before our sorry, what's that?
Canceled. I'm sorry. I've had 3 bear hunts canceled in Canada.
Yeah.
The same bear hunt, just canceled 3 times. It was supposed to be fall. Then it was supposed to be spring. Then we had COVID, couldn't go. Then it was supposed to be fall, couldn't go. Now here we are, a year later, springtime, still can't get to British Columbia. So it's really crazy. I went to Africa in February. Can't freaking go to Canada.
I know it's the worst. And we're accepting, like, up until yesterday, the government was accepting flights from Brazil and India, which are two hot spots in the world right now with severe variants, and the UK. And my province where I lived, I can't even fully operate my business. We're only open for takeout. They won't let us serve customers in any capacity.
How long has that been going on?
Pretty much the entire restrictions in some form for the entire COVID duration. So I think it's coming up on 15 months now. Over the summer, we were allowed to do outdoor dining on the patio, which we don't have. So they shut down the street, which was a very long process. We lost about probably a month of patio season because of if you had a patio, great, but we didn't have a patio, so we had to wait for them to close the street and set up our permits and all this stuff to be able to serve on the street. And that only lasted for the summer, and then as soon as the fall came, and cases started going up, variants started coming in, they closed us back down. So we've been surviving just off of takeout sales. Thankfully we had the cookbook to sell. You mentioned your bear hunts canceled. I had hunts and like book tours, dinners and things like that all across Canada, United States canceled. Making just being deemed an unessential business is it's depressing, man. It's a lot to have to deal with for 15 months now.
Well, I think that name in and of itself is a contradiction. Like, every business is essential. Someone is making
it's essential
a living
to me.
Right, exactly.
It's essential to my kids, my family. So personally, I am very disappointed with the way the government's handling it. Would be the most positive way to put it.
That's amazing.
Talking about your sort of meteoric rise to notoriety, it's surely you've reflected on how fortunate and blessed you are to have had that happen, despite the way you described, like, especially the initial sort of onslaught of hate and everything. But I mean candidly, you probably wouldn't be selling a cookbook, right, if it hadn't been for that. Like, that, having that experience to sort of help through this this lockdown and everything has got to, you had to have reflected on that and be like, wow, how lucky was that?
Yeah,
right?
it definitely helped with sales. I think with that book, the book was something that we were working on prior
Oh, really?
to
Okay, cool.
even opening the restaurant. Yeah, so
Oh,
the restaurant is actually a byproduct of working on the book in the first place,
awesome.
which is kind of funny. But my business partner and I were working on this book. He's the camera and film kind of component of our business, and we thought that opening a restaurant would be a great way to work on the book and really have a home for the press and stuff to go to. And so we kind of flip flop back and forth between the book and restaurant, and then the restaurant took the majority of our time for a couple of years, and then we decided, okay, hey, we need to put this book out. If we had actually planned it, I would have had the book available when the protests happened, but we weren't that intuitive. Yeah.
Food photography is like a difficult thing. I like to cook, obviously, you know that.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional chef, but someday I might write a wild game cookbook. I've got a lot of recipes, but I'm always just taking my pictures, with my cell phone, and I might take 30 pictures to get one.
Yeah, it's hard,
photo.
man, and certain things are really hard. Like photographing a cooked steak with French fries seems to be like the most difficult thing to photograph. But
I'll cook it,
yeah,
and I'll run outside to get the natural light. And my wife's like, "What are you doing, you idiot?
Yeah.
Just eat your dinner." I was like, "No, the lighting's perfect outside right now. I gotta go."
Yeah.
I know a professional photographer who's real skilled at lighting. If you guys want
Yeah.
to call, she happens to live here in my house.
Yeah. Nice.
Pretty talented. So
yeah.
So
my family will be eating dinner, and I'm like, same thing you just described, and running around trying to take a photo, and they're laughing at me. So
well, Dad's gonna eat his food cold, but the rest of us will enjoy it. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about some of the just gross overreach of power from the Ontario government. And I don't know how much of this, I think the first time we ever had a conversation probably was about gun control. I think about
we're talking about gun control, which has gotten worse, I think, since the last time I've spoken to you. So
well, how much of it is on a national level? Like, are other provinces allowed to have outdoor dining, or is this just something in Ontario?
Yeah. So Ontario's cases are definitely the highest, but we have the largest city in Canada in Ontario. So, and then a problem with that is the federal government up until yesterday they weren't canceling any flights. So we were still, accepting flights from all over the world. Right when COVID hit, we were accepting. I don't think we ever stopped flights from China. So,
you stopped them from America.
We stopped. Yeah, we stopped non-essential travel between Canada and the United States. So. I don't know why. I'm not in politics. I couldn't tell you the reasoning behind all this, but it's almost like the federal government is sabotaging the province of Ontario. They're two different political parties. We have a conservative, which would be Republican, province, and then our federal government is a very liberal, liberal government. And it's almost like they're just sabotaging us or something. It's crazy. It's
so like
there's really no other way to explain other than they don't want to offend the Chinese government and cancel flights from China. I couldn't tell you the reason behind it.
The U.S. and Canada both, and Trump did a great job of not being so beholden to China. He was like, "Hey, China, suck this." We're not going to play that game. And the first thing Biden did was, hey, how fast can we get back to, good terms with China?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know why we're all so, both of our countries should nut up and say, hey, you know what? We don't really need you.
Yeah.
There's 1.5 billion consumers there, though.
Yeah. When it comes to just protecting our own country from a virus that's, coming from international lands, why not cancel flights for 30 days or 50 or 60 days, whatever it is, at least to evaluate and figure out what's going on and to protect everybody.
So are you saying, when you say that y'all's federal government is kind of quote sabotaging Ontario, a lot of these lockdown regulations are coming from the province level, right? But you're talking about the flight issues specifically, like Toronto.
The flight issues are federal. They're federal controlled things. So even if
and being Toronto, most of them come into Toronto specifically when they're international like that. Yeah. Okay.
They said in the beginning of COVID, they didn't want to stop flights from other countries because it was racist. And it was like, that's such a
just saying that it came from China is racist.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So
right.
it's, the whole thing is bizarre. And, I'm not a medical expert. I believe COVID is real. I've spoken to people that have had it, and it's not a lot of fun.
I've
but
had
just
it,
the way
and
that
it almost killed my mom. I mean, she was in the hospital for 30 days. So it is very real. It affects everyone differently, though.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And it's, Canada, we had no rapid tests. I wanted to get a rapid test to come to the States, a few weeks ago when I came to the States. You needed any kind of a test. And I thought, I had tests in the States in January when I was hunting. Rapid test was cheap, 20 minutes in, out. They did it in your car. They don't exist in Canada. People aren't, all we have available are these PCR tests. So, why aren't rapid testing sites, everywhere, if they're the quickest and easiest and cheapest form of testing people. Our big problem right now is factories like Amazon and food processing plants, where I think Amazon in the region where I live had 600 cases just in their, factory or their warehouse, whatever you want to call it. And, why aren't these people being tested on their way into work? They're going to work and spreading it and causing spikes in numbers and spreading it to their coworkers and clogging up our hospitals. And then they have to shut down the province. But then they turn around and blame restaurants and say that it's, restaurants are a place of transmission. Well, when we were open for patio and takeout and all this stuff over the past, 15 months, we haven't had one case in my restaurant. Not one of our staff.
Wow.
Not one guest has been, we have to do guest, contact tracing when we were serving on the patio. Not one guest had COVID. So, the way that the government is handling this is very poor.
But so you're on a provincial level, it's a conservative
yes.
party.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just don't understand why they're still sticking it to you guys. Like Texas opened up 6 weeks ago to full capacity, Chisum. And I looked yesterday, our case per day ratio is the lowest it's been since the first spike.
It's been declining since they did that.
Yeah.
I have a question on that. So I mean, I would assume that the major cities, and obviously the biggest of which, as you point out, being Toronto, are more left-leaning, right?
Yes.
Liberal in Canadian terms.
Yeah.
So when you say Ontario is sort of a conservative province, is it kind of like, here in Texas, everybody thinks of Texas as being a very conservative place, but the reality is Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and basically all of Dallas-Fort Worth, I mean, they're very liberal and now becoming left, right? Left.
Yeah.
I mean, left wing really. But it's such a big place. We have so many, small communities, small towns, rural. Is that similar to Ontario? You guys have a lot of basically hunters and fishermen in between the dense population areas. And
I think Ontario and Texas, I think Ontario might be, a little larger in size. But there's only a very small portion of Ontario that's actually inhabited by people.
Sure.
The very southern tip of Ontario, the rest is very small communities, and the further north you go, it's just nothing but the boreal forest.
Right.
But I think the same is true. The major cities are more left leaning. Our provincial government, before the government we have now, screwed up so badly and put our province in so much debt, and just pissed everybody off. The last provincial election we had, they actually lost their party status. They lost the election so badly. So I think a lot of their votes just came from people completely fed up with how the province had handled various number of things, energy, gas prices, all these things that they royally screwed. Really had a big part of why the Conservative Party was elected. But I think the same is true for us, whereas our cities are more left and the rural communities are more conservative leaning.
That gives me hope, though, because you just reminded me of California. Why don't the people in California wake up and take their state back? You guys took yours, so essentially, I don't know. Maybe they're too far gone, but
I don't know. They say that our hospitals are overcrowded, and then you hear reports of when it was flu season a couple years ago, the hospitals were equally as crowded. But the difference between then and now is hospitals aren't allowed to have patients in beds in the halls anymore. So, Canada talks about having free healthcare and the best healthcare in the world and stuff like that. Well, during flu season, there was people in beds in hallways. Now, and that because of COVID, that's not allowed. So really, we're at a point now where our hospital system is not big enough. It hasn't been big enough for a long time, and COVID is really, shining a light on that. And I think we are shut down because of that. We're not able to deal with the amount of people we have that are in the ICU is the problem.
Do you guys talk about your your infection rate, like just casually among friends? We did here in Texas. Is like, oh yeah. How many? My wife's a nurse practitioner. She's always updating me anyway.
Yeah.
Because she's in that field, and like I just said, ours have down or down. It's like minimal now, and we're at full capacity. Everyone's going back to normal. You can go walk. I walked into a grocery store the other day for the first time without a mask on, and I would say 20% of the people in the store didn't have masks on, and it felt kind of freaking liberating, to be honest with you.
Yeah. If they work, great. I hate those things personally. You wear one for long enough and it is difficult to breathe. I'm sorry, but I don't think we're meant to keep those things on our face all the time. And if I don't know, like, I'm not a doctor. We have mask mandates, we have to wear them when we go in store. We have to wear them everywhere. So
do you have to wear them outside walking down the street?
No, I think Montreal, like Quebec, you do. I think I've seen videos of people getting tickets and charged and harassed by police for not wearing a mask outside. And I think it's outside in a public space. That's ridiculous. I have spoken to some doctors about that, and they've told me outdoor transmission is really not a
basically not a thing. Yeah,
it's not a thing. Between UV light killing the virus and it evaporating into the air, the atmosphere. That's not really a thing. Again, I'm not a doctor, but to me that this sounds like complete craziness.
Man, they
wear a mask outside.
Yeah, there were studies being reported in like May, probably into June last year. I heard it from several sources, and then it's like it just evaporated. Right? It's amazing how like certain news can just vanish. But these scientists and doctors were saying that the studying on the virus showed that it took like 15 minutes of prolonged like face-to-face contact with somebody to transmit the virus. It was, there was all this fear mongering about, oh, it's airborne. Well, okay, but you have to get so much of it in you, especially if you're a reasonably healthy person, right? To end up getting sick from it. And so to your point, like between the UV and some wind and just the nature of the virus, passing by somebody is not going to get you ill, right? And that was really like, it was pretty well understood for, I feel like, about a month there, and then poof, like nobody talks about that anymore.
Yeah, and even like advice from the World Health Organization is continually changing, and now they're saying lockdowns are they're not needed and they're worse for the public. Like I'm worried for my kids. My daughter is 17 and she's mentally able to deal with this. She quite likes doing school from home.
Right.
She has to sleep in longer, and she's one of those kids that can like handle the work on her own. But my son, who's 11, he was playing hockey 5 nights a week in a rep hockey league. All of a sudden goes to no physical activity, no sports, no seeing his friends, no going to school, no routine. And the kid was depressed. And, he was like face down crying on his floor in his room, because his whole life just got yanked out from under him. And this, has been ongoing now for 15 months here.
So do you guys is there a way for him to see his friends? Like, can they come to your house, or like, well, how strict is the social aspect?
Well, right now, they've just put us down in the strictest lockdown we've ever had. It's a stay-at-home order. We're not allowed to have visitors from other households in our house. All non-essential businesses are closed again. You can't go to a store and buy, non-essential goods. They even locked down city parks, and they wrapped basketball nets with plastic bags and caution taped off city parks. And I think that was when the people of Ontario finally got pissed off enough to, take to Twitter and take to calling their representatives and doing all the things we can do to, protest. And finally, the government rolled back the, not allowed to go to a playground and, or a city park to exercise. But we're back to square one with this thing, and we're in a stay-at-home order.
That's
So
unbelievable.
It was Ontario that just like last week or maybe the week prior, y'all had some officials do a press conference where they were, I mean, basically announcing a police state, right? They were saying that we're giving the police authority to come up to you on the street, demand an explanation of why you're outside your home, right?
Basically carting you, wanting to see your identification and all that stuff. So they did
That's
that
racist.
last week.
You shouldn't have to have an ID.
Yeah, exactly. And then what happened was the police chiefs started speaking out, saying that they weren't going to enforce it. So then the government rolled that back. Yeah, the problem is the police chief said they weren't going to enforce it, but then there's still some officers that were doing it. There's still some reports of people getting carded and getting in trouble and getting these tickets because the government hadn't rolled that back yet. So
yeah, and to just kind of expand on that, Chisum sent me the link to that, and it was literally your political figurehead saying the police can stop you in your car for no reason without provocation. Yeah. Don't have to have a reason. They can stop you on the street, no provocation. Hey, what are you doing out here? Yeah. Well, I'm going for a walk, whatever. F you, no, can't do that. It's just basically the most, that's out of all the lockdown stuff I've heard, that was the one that was the most authoritarian, I think of anything in Canada or the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not nice living here right now. I'll tell you that.
When are you moving to Texas?
I mean, I would.
We need
love
the
to.
Antler Bar and Kitchen down here.
Yeah, I think it would do well.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt it would.
For sure.
It would. Yeah. So do you still? You've been on Joe Rogan's show. Do you listen to his podcast?
I do, not religiously. I don't listen to the ones every week. If there's a guest that I like and connect with, I'll definitely have a listen. And I've definitely found out about a lot of interesting individuals, from his podcast. He's got such an interesting, reach and types of people that he has on. It's even when he had Bernie Sanders on, I listened to that one just because I don't know anything about the guy, and it was interesting to hear him speak. So. He has a really interesting group of people on there.
Yeah. I think I've learned more, not directly from Rogan's podcast, but to your point, like the rabbit hole that it leads you down, following all these other fascinating people and brilliant people that you're talking about, like that I learned in, college and law school combined just in the last few years from podcasts, basically from the guys he's introduced us to.
I don't typically listen to other podcasts because I spend the whole week making one and now two for a living. Yeah. Although this one doesn't make us any money, but we're passionate about it. So I really have kind of been out on listening to podcasts, but Chisum just beats me over the head into submission. It's like, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. So I went to the turkey lease 2 days ago. And he was like, you got to listen to this one with Colin Knorr, who's a big Second Amendment advocate. He's from Dallas. Yeah. So I turn it on. I've got a 2-hour drive. I'm like, I'll knock this thing out. It's a 3-hour conversation.
They're all conversation. In fact, if he goes shorter than 3 hours, it's because he's either got something. About half the time, it's because he's not really digging the conversation. 3 hours is.
Time flies with him. He's a really great interviewer and conversationalist for sure. It was, our time. It just seemed like it flew by, and it was, like I said, 2.5, 3 hours long. So.
So I learned something. So Chisum has me occasionally listening to other podcasts. So I listened to this episode, and Colin starts talking about how much money these big cities like New York and LA are spending on homeless people.
Right.
And like, it was educational for Joe because he's like, I didn't know. He's like, I just left LA because it's, it was becoming too crazy. But he just always thought the homeless people just like needed to get a job. Like he didn't realize the city's spending $450 million on homeless people a year. Now you're probably in a place where it's too cold to have a lot of homelessness.
No, we do. There's right now there's a bunch of encampments in city parks, and they all have tents and camps set up.
Is this because of COVID? Like, has it gotten
America?
It's gotten worse because of COVID, because they've cut the amount of occupants you can have in the shelters. So I think there's a lot more people on the street that can't find, or they're scared to go to the shelters because of COVID. So now they prefer to sleep in a tent outside than go to a shelter.
Wow. I don't know where the line between, being a humanitarian versus these people can't just live in these slum cities. People like, You don't want your kids around that because drug use is rampant in those places.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids around that. Chisum sure as hell doesn't want his girls around that. So that's one thing I struggle with about homelessness. Of course, as a person that cares about humanity, I feel bad for them, have compassion for them. How do we fix the problem? And then you see these states like California, $450 million for like 100,000 homeless people. That's a lot of money per homeless person, but where's it going? And nothing's changing. It's only getting worse.
Yeah. And a lot of it's mental health and mental illness, and what do you do? It's a complex problem. And there's a fine line between enabling and then helping these people. And I don't know what that is. But it's definitely complex issue.
Yeah. Well, I think both of our governments have gotten incredibly adept at enabling people instead of encouraging them to make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the thing that really struck home in their conversation, and I do think it goes well beyond just the homelessness issue. It's like institutional, monetary abuse, right? Like Cable pointed out, $450 million in 2020 was spent on the LA homeless problem, and yet the LA homeless problem is like growing exponentially, right? So Rogan's going, where is that money going? Well, the truth is, so I had back in February, I had a couple of buddies from law school down to hunt with us, basically, and mostly just screw around in the country, but one of them was pointing out, so these guys are sort of plugged into like these different rackets, right? And one of my buddies actually from Oklahoma was pointing out how he had sort of found out through, his practice and the sort of people he's associated with about how these 501c3s. So in the United States, I don't know what the program is like in Canada, but a 501c3 is a non-profit organization, right? So conservation group, charity group, churches, you name it, right? So there's a limit according to the tax code that you can't, you think of a nonprofit, and I guess it never had been explained to me how you qualify, right? Mm-hmm. The only way, all they have to do to qualify as a nonprofit other than to register as one is that they can't have greater than 5% profit margins, right? Or maybe it was 2.
Yeah.
But then, you'll hear about an organization that's taking in hundreds of millions of dollars annually, right? And we all know about how these organizations, that if you're going to contribute cash to one of these organizations, you should try to figure out there's different ways that, these organizations are ranked based on how much of your money is going to go to the actual thing you're funding versus the org, right? And
administration costs. Yeah,
exactly. So, you're lucky if you find one that's got 20% of their revenue. I mean, that's a lot going towards the actual thing versus, to your point, the overhead. And so his point was, man, when you hear about these $100 million annual 501c3s, they are actually incentivized to pay like their board of directors like high 6 and maybe even 7-figure salaries and bonuses and stuff, right? And then on top of that, so the board and the directors of the organization, they have a project that they're going to put $50 million to. Maybe they're going to build a homeless shelter, right? Guess who gets the contract? Brother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
And
Google
it's no bid,
Google the We scandal, We scandal in
I've seen
Ontario
a little bit
right
about
now.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it's supposed to be like a children's charity. They ended up owning, millions of dollars of real estate all over Canada. They actually paid Trudeau's wife, Trudeau's brother, and Trudeau's mom to be speakers at their events, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then during COVID, the Trudeau government gave them a $900 million contract to do something to do with youth employment. And there's already a youth employment services program as part of our government. So instead of giving the money to our government program, they then turned around and gave it to this We charity that pays them for speaker engagement. So it's an ongoing investigation right now.
Lockdown, when no one's supposed to be working anyway. That doesn't make any sense.
And I would bet money that they're bleeding money off of the government program as well as the nonprofit. Getting back to the homeless issue in LA and everything. I mean, those government funds are handled and dealt with the same way, right? It's these brother-in-law deals that we're going to do this, during the course of that conversation, they pointed out that as we speak right now, over $500 million, and it might, if I recall, it might have been as much as like $800 million was given by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's one of the very worst in the country, to his wife to manage, which I think also it was part of this homeless conversation. I think it was funding for homelessness. They can't account for it. It's just gone. $800 million.
It was
$500 million. $850 million given by the mayor to his wife to manage these charitable programs, and then they can't account for $1 of it.
Yeah.
What? Like, that's the kind of thing that's rampant at all levels of government, and we all just like deal with it, right? Like, I don't know what to do about it. But you know, it really absolutely should be criminal. But guess who writes the laws? You know,
criminals.
And then enforces the laws.
I also learned one other thing that I wanted to hit on that podcast, and Colin said, or maybe it was Joe. I didn't realize that you could literally steal $900 worth of shit in California and you won't get prosecuted. Like, that's the limit.
Really?
Like, you could steal
under $1,000.
Yeah. $900.
Under $1,000.
They said that people's cars get broken into, and as long as the thieves don't steal $1,000 worth of stuff, and they don't even call the police because they're not going to do anything.
They're not going to do anything.
What kind of lawless society do we live in? We're going in the wrong direction. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just stealing.
Yeah, it's scary.
And enabling them to do it, making them feel empowered, because they know, well, as long as I only steal, 3 pairs of Air Jordans or whatever when I'm looting, then it's fine.
Yeah.
So switching back over to Canada, we're sort of just beating Michael up about California, which is definitely a common thread in our conversations. But you mentioned Trudeau, man, that guy is the Teflon Don, huh? Like, what your peer group, obviously you don't know everybody in the country, but like, what does the average Joe that you come across think of that guy? Because the things, and again, granted, we all have our media bubble, right? So the things I'm getting from him come from certain sources, but I mean, between his blackface scandal and this thing, and it's and then he's like the most woke politician that I can see anywhere. Like, I don't understand it, man. Like, how does that? I guess part of the problem is y'all have so many parties. He always has like a plurality, but never a majority kind of thing.
I have no idea how he's gotten away with the things he's gotten away with. The blackface scandal was a little premature to the BLM riots and protests and stuff like that. I don't know how he survived that, to be honest. I was dumb and young, too, in my life, and that's something I've never done. I asked a lot of my friends, I said, in all seriousness, when you were in college and drunk and doing stupid shit, did you ever paint your face black and go to a party? And no, like, it's just, I can't believe that someone would do that, and for him to, just get away with just that one alone, and he did it multiple times on multiple occasions. There's photos from different eras of his life doing it, and it just goes to show you the arrogance of this person. There's been the ethics violations that are against the law that he's been, convicted of on more than one occasion, accepting gifts and vacations and things from people he shouldn't, there's a big SNC Lavalin scandal. It was a big construction company out of Quebec that was caught, bribing officials overseas for construction contracts that Trudeau actually fired and put pressure on I think it was our Attorney General, and she was the first female Indigenous Attorney General or woman in power, in our government, that, she was the first. He fired her and threw her under the bus, and got away with it, and it's like he claims to be this feminist and supporting Indigenous affairs, and then, uses them as his scapegoat. So, I don't know, I think people are blinded by I think it's his fake wokeness. I don't think he is woke. I think he just likes to play on, he likes to play on the heartstrings of people, and he says the right things that resonate with the right people.
That's how he gets elected. Yeah.
That's how he gets elected. Yeah. He just stands in our House of Commons, and just lies through his teeth. And, he's starting to get caught. A lot of people are unhappy with the lack of vaccines in this country. So, the reason that we are so far behind and our ICUs are so full is because we're, I think, like ranked, it's like 40th or 60th in the world for vaccination rates right now.
I think Chisum and I could go get one like this week if we wanted to.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. So
he doesn't want to.
I'm not even eligible. I'm 36 years old. I'm not even eligible to go get one. They just announced that if you're 40 years old and over, you can go get one. There was some talks of letting people in the hospitality industry get them because they were, working with the public. I don't know if that has happened yet. And for me personally, I'm a healthy guy. I don't know if I want it. I'm not anti-vaccine. I've had the measles and mumps vaccines and all those things, smallpox, whatever. But this is so new. I'm a little nervous about it, to be honest. I don't know.
I think we're all three in that same camp.
Yeah, I don't want my kids vaccinated with this thing yet because it's too new.
Hell no, we're not getting our kids vaccinated.
Man, it's a very very, very, very survivable thing for people in our in our general age group, and like you said, level of health. I mean, all three of us get outside. Actually, one thing we forgot in last conversation, Cable, is there is 78% of everybody in the States anyway, and I bet that stat probably holds up nation or worldwide. 78% of people who were hospitalized or died from it were clinically overweight, right? Not even clinically obese, overweight. But there's another study that I had found that said that there's a sort of a comparable, like it's not just overweight, like, because there are people who are, no offense, buddy, but Cable, he could definitely shed 15, 20 pounds, right? But he's fit. He exercises.
Mommy likes it though.
He plays soccer. He goes hunting with me, and exactly. Right. He's got a dad bod, but he can climb a mountain with me and pack an elk out, right? So like they were saying, like level of activity is definitely correlative too, right? Like you can be a husky guy and still be good, good cardio and all that stuff, right? So so like both have a high degree of correlation to like major complications from it. Point being, like people in our general demographic across the board, you may be the kind of asymptomatic guy. Cable got it and he's got asthma and he kicked it in 3 days, right? So like and at the end of the day, it's still an emergency use authorization. It has not been, at least in the States, through the full gamut of regulations necessary to get full approval. And so it's like, but you have to take it. And I pointed out the other day, what frustrates me the most about it is like, you have to take it, not because we give a damn about you and your liberty and your feelings and your body, but you have to take it to protect other people.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, you're telling me I have to change something about my health for people who generally aren't willing to do the same for theirs. Yeah. And I think that's absolute bullshit. Like, I'm not a selfish prick, right? I don't think any of us that are dads can be. Like, that's, once you become a father or a mother, it really takes your ego down a notch, right? All of a sudden you have other lives that you would lay yours down for 100%, right? And I believe in a certain level of communalism, right? But I just don't think it's even remotely fair to say that people who have, I'll even grant it's one thing, people who are vulnerable, right? Protecting them, I understand, right? But people who have made themselves vulnerable through their own poor decision-making, I have to take a shot that's brand new and still experimental by any reasonable definition, because I'm supposed to be protecting people who refuse to lift a finger to help their own health, man. It's just wrong, man. And at this point, I'm less worried about I'm not an anti-vaxxer either. My 4-year-old just had her round of shots the other day, right? I'm getting more and more less concerned as we go week by week and see more and more people get vaccinated, including like my mom just got her second shot.
Yeah.
Less concerned about the, potential for weird things to come of it, as I am just like, I know I don't need it. If I get sick, I'll stay home. But the biggest thing is, I'm not going to let you tell me what to do, man. Like, period.
Put in my body.
Yeah.
Anyway. You brought up a good point though, Michael, about the kiddos, because like personally, I had it like 4 days later, my wife had it. Our kiddos were, once I had it, I went in my own room or stayed in here in the studio. But like they were still around her because she was negative and had no symptoms. They didn't get it, and they got tested with the PCR twice, all of them.
Yeah.
And they're 8, 6, and 6. So like
Wow.
like what you said about your kids, I would encourage everybody. Like kids are resilient to this shit.
Yeah. My daughter was in a car with her friend that had it, and she didn't know they had it. She hung out with her 3 times. They went for runs in the park, and she picked her up in her car. She was with this girl for 3 days, basically, who had asymptomatic COVID symptoms. Went to get an allergy test, and they made her get a COVID test prior. It was the only way that her friend found out she had it. My daughter, she's had 3 tests, and all of them came back negative. So she was sharing a car with somebody that had it and didn't get it. So
shared a plate of food with somebody who tested positive the next day and got real sick. Like he was sick for a good solid 2 weeks.
Wow.
What do you guys think about the handshake? Because I've noticed in Texas anyway, it's coming back. I'm this guy that's on my deer lease. We had never met because of COVID. Like people, we have a house out there. There's 4 of us on it. We take our families. We've kind of been doing it at different times. Or if it's like a couple of the guys, we don't take families. We'll meet up. But I'd never met Dan. He's actually he's a fishing guide in Alaska from May through October.
Wow.
Cool guy. But yeah, we met for the first time. It was like boom, handshake. You know, it was like I'm glad this isn't like fist bumps are cool and all, but I like a firm handshake.
Yeah, I'm kind of old school like that too. Like I prefer to shake someone's hand when I meet them. It feels weird. You know, it's just the way you're brought up. Like, you know, firm handshake, look the person in the eye and call them by their name. You know, like that's just ingrained in my upbringing. So, personally, you know, I see friends and stuff, I still shake their hand. You know, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer if you're concerned. You know, I'm not that concerned about it. Like, you know, we're healthy people, and if
we eat a lot of venison.
Yeah. We eat a natural diet.
That's right.
I was online reading some news articles and stuff like that, and there was it's old now, like the deaths at the time in Canada were around 11,000 total for COVID. I think now they've doubled. So this news thing was old, but they put out the amount of deaths that we had in the country, and then they put out the amount of deaths that happened in the long-term care homes. So outside of long-term care homes, this was a few months ago, the amount of deaths in Canada were 166 deaths outside of long-term care homes.
So man, you started all this by saying, I know it's real. I know it's real too. Cable knows it's real, but it's not what we've been told it is, man.
Yeah.
That's just like that right there. What could prove that more?
Yeah.
The average age of death is 78.
The news station retracted. They changed the article online. Like people screenshot it when they first put it out, and the backlash was so huge they took it down and changed it. But people had screenshot these, and they were talking about it on their YouTube channel. That their YouTube channel canceled them.
When was the last time you read that, dude?
I've never actually read it. I know I've heard of it and heard of him.
Read it. It's not a long book. For real, read it. We're talking about 1980.
That was the year I was born, so I should.
You should totally read it then.
I'm writing it down.
Changing the news like that, just.
We talked about this on the last episode, but it's pertains to what you just said. Governor DeSantis from Florida had a roundtable discussion with it was like professors, medical doctors from what was it, Yale, Columbia, Harvard.
It was Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
I think I watched it.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
YouTube took it down.
Wow.
Like, because it contradicted what Fauci was saying. And they're like, no, but hey, these people are as qualified, if not more than Fauci to have an opinion. And there's 3 of them saying the same shit.
And all he was saying was it was very specific. The Harvard guy was saying that because of the rates of transmission and serious complications that we see among school-aged children under 14, which going back to June, the data has always supported the idea that they're more at risk from the flu, traditional influenza, than they are from this. He's like, and because of the fact that a 12-year-old is not going to keep a mask on properly and not be picking his or her nose and stuff. He's like, I don't really think it's necessary among school-age children. And that got,
that's why it was taken down.
Yeah, Silicon Valley banned.
It's bizarre. I was talking to my uncle about this stuff, and he was saying that transmission's in the home. the kids go to school and they're asymptomatic, or they don't have maybe the virus is just living on their fingers. But what happens is the transmission's in the home. So when you're locking everybody up, making people not leave their house, the transmission is actually higher, because at home with your family, you're not wearing a mask, you're not washing your hands as much. And that's, locking people up is actually making the transmission go up. Now, my uncle's not a doctor, his wife's a nurse, and that's some theories that he's read and talked about. But I just thought, that's an interesting way to look at it. If you encourage people to get outside, get out of their house, maybe it's less.
Get some sunshine. Be healthy. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, is the two things you can do, besides getting vaccinated, I guess, that are the most likely to improve your outcome if you're exposed to this virus is vitamin D and exercise.
And
so
physical
both
health,
of those, right? That means get outside. Anyway.
What's also interesting is the zero reported flu cases in the last two seasons. Like, do they think we're stupid? Like, how stupid are we?
They think we're really stupid, man.
Like, there's hundreds of thousands of COVID cases, and all of a sudden there's zero cases of the flu now. Like, and you see these memes where someone's in a car accident and the death certificate says COVID related death. Like, it's just like,
kid in Colorado drank themselves to death, COVID death. There's a podcast I listen to. I'll just go ahead and name it. It's a group of conservative writers, intellectuals that used to be part of the National Review. It's like a news magazine here in the States, has been since like the 50s, I think. But they branched off and created an outfit called the Dispatch, in large part because of basically dissension among the original National Review crew with regards to Trump. This group of people that they're basically like never Trumpers, right? They wanted to start their own news organization, and I like listening to them generally. So I've moved over and got their podcast, and I listen to it frequently. But the more I listen to it, the more the more establishment I realize they kind of are, right? Like, so they were talking. They had a specialist come on about 3 weeks ago just to. It was a doctor, right? But just to try to convince their audience to take the vaccine, because they were getting lots of questions. I mean, they set it all up. They were like, we're getting lots of people asking about the vaccine, and a lot of people who are concerned about the vaccine. And a lot of people are saying they're not going to take it. So we wanted to bring this guy in because we feel like he's the best we've heard at explaining why you need to. And immediately I was just like, okay, let's see how this goes, right? And so there was this moment where he points out what you were just talking about, Michael, that the flu basically was stopped dead in its tracks last year, allegedly. That there were zero deaths from it. And the year prior, I mean, we went through this data in 2019. I think it was 65 or 70,000 deaths in America. In 2018, it was almost 90, right? So always historically big numbers of people, right? And what he actually said was, and I can go back about 6 months, and I remember listening to some more, conspiracy is not the word, but people who are way more concerned about authoritarianism and government overreach saying they're going to make us wear these things every flu season with masks, right? And this dude said, what seems to have been remarkably effective against the flu is mask wearing. And I was like, there you go, man. They're just like ripping it in, man.
See, but in other parts of the world, that's very interesting. Like I've spent 3 weeks in Japan. I've spent a little bit of time in Singapore traveling, and just
working on your sushi skills or what?
Yeah, no, I went actually for a snowboard trip, and
oh wow,
yeah, they got some killer powder out there. But of course, we ate our way through Tokyo and some of the other regions. But it's like just customary in Japan.
Right.
If you're sick, you wear a mask. And
if you're sick,
so if you're sick, so it's very common to see. You're on the subway. There's 50 people. 5 or 6 people wearing a mask, and it's a courtesy thing. And
I got no problem with that.
Yeah, I think that's and I think if it's your choice and you want to be responsible and respectful to people around you, I think that's great. But to force it on people and make healthy people wear one is crazy.
Right.
Let's
exactly.
Let's kind of wrap this up with a little, like, for our listeners who aren't aware of, you mentioned you have even stricter gun laws than we probably talked, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What has changed, and do Canadians, gun-owning Canadians, look at the United States and say, wow, these guys have it great?
Yes. To answer to your question, yes, we look to the Americans and think, wouldn't that be nice? So from when we last spoke, all ARs of any platform are banned. So for people that own an AR like myself, it's a safe queen right now until they figure out what they're doing. So, we have the three license classes. We have a prohibited license, which you can't even get anymore. It was the license given to people when our first gun control came into effect. So people that had like old military relics or fully automatic things, or pistols that have a short barrel, shorter than 4 inches, considered a prohibited device. You can't shoot that anywhere. You can't use it anywhere. It's like basically a museum
Ornament.
relic now. Then there's the restricted class of licenses. So this was brought in for all pistols and really shotguns and rifles that had a barrel shorter than 18 inches. So and a lot of the semi-automatic rifles and things like that were put into restricted class. So restricted class basically means you're only allowed to use them at a range. You can't hunt with an AR in Canada. You can't carry a pistol for defense, or even if you're camping or fishing, you can't carry a big caliber pistol for bear defense or something like that. So these guns you can only use at a range. Then there's non-restricted, which are basically your hunting rifles and shotguns. So what's happened now is the government banned 1,500 firearms. All ARs were caught up in that, but things like I think it's called an MCR or MXR. I forget the name of the model, but it was basically a semi-automatic 308. Things like any kind of semi-automatic rifles were caught up in this.
My whole gun safe just got banned.
Yeah. So and even like our storage laws, like we can't store a firearm that's not locked. All our firearms have to have a trigger lock or be in a locked case, separate from ammunition. I think it gets weird if it's in a safe like you have that you can't move it. I think you can keep your ammo and stuff in there altogether. And then I should mention the restricted class of things we have. You can't transport them unless they're double locked. So if you're going to the range with your pistol, or at the time you could use your AR, it have to be trigger locked in a locked case to be able to transport it. So our problem is, Toronto is like a little New York. There's people running around shooting each other, and they don't have licenses. Like you can't buy ammunition here without a license. You need a license for everything.
My lock, Michael, that place in between your seat in your truck?
Yeah.
I just put my handgun right there.
Yeah.
That's how I lock it up.
Yeah. So, as a sports shooter or a gun owner here, it's no fun, man. It's and they just continually pick on people with licenses because they know who we are, they know where we live. These restricted guns, they're all registered. So if I buy a pistol at a gun store, the paperwork, I pay for it. Paperwork goes to the police station. The police station then sends it back, and then I'm allowed to transport it home. So that could take a week, that could take a day. You can't just go into a store and buy a pistol and take it home.
Right.
Our non-restricted stuff is unregistered. So like hunting shotguns and stuff like that, there's no registry on those. They don't know what they are. But what's happened was, there's all these non-restricted guns they now said are banned. So people have what's now is like a black market of these guns that are banned. We're not supposed to use, we're not supposed to hunt with anymore. But really, what are we supposed to do with them? So if you get caught with them, it's you're going to jail. But
yeah. This is
it's just getting worse.
Because this is where the Biden administration openly says he wants to take America. Like Colorado just passed a law, or is trying to pass a law. I saw this week, to where you have to have, much like in Canada, if you have a handgun in your house, you have kids in the house, you have to have it locked up in a safe at all times. Well, that's great, except for if someone comes into your house, you're now vulnerable. And I agree. Everyone should practice gun safety. I personally have my guns locked up because I have 3 little kids.
Yeah.
They would not touch a gun because that's the way that I've raised them. They go hunting, they go shooting, they don't touch the guns. That one that's in my truck, they know it's there. They do not touch it. But the point is, the government shouldn't be telling me what I can and can't do in my own house with my guns. They don't have any jurisdiction there. They shouldn't be saying that. But all this stuff, like you said, we have it great here, and we do.
Yeah.
But we are more under fire right now today than we ever have been.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, like, give an inch, they take a mile, and that's what's happening in Canada. And now they're talking about giving cities the authority to ban handguns within those cities. Well, I'm screwed. Like, I'm gonna have to move. It's
well,
that happens. So
welcome to Baltimore, Chicago, and Washington D.C., the cities with the highest, the strictest gun laws and the highest murder rates. It works out great. It really does.
Yeah, and then they turn around and blame the gun owners. It's
right. Criminals,
the legal gun owners in our
don't
case.
buy their guns at Cabela's. They just don't. So.
No.
They also don't comply with all those regulations.
No.
I've always looked at, or for a long time anyway, looked at Canada as sort of about a decade ahead of us when it comes to social progress, right? And I think that's a big part of why we're having this conversation with you, is just to sort of get an idea of what's been going on with COVID and some of these other things. But to Cable's point, all of it is coming this way, and that's like global, right? I mean, this isn't just Canada and the U.S., a North American thing, right? There's this movement towards safety and protectionism, and what drives me nuts is they feel like if they just put enough Nerf everywhere, right, pad everything and take away any sharp objects, that somehow we're all going to live forever. And I guess I had a point, and my point is, when it comes to specifically hunting, because Cable and I are both huge hunters, obviously you are, Michael, and some of these, like your unrestricted class, the types of firearms you would use for hunting, what is the general, in the States, we still have something like 70 to 80% of Americans will say that they don't have a problem with people hunting for food, right? It gets wonky if you start talking about trophy hunting and if you start talking about bears, but we know y'all, you lost your right. They banned grizzly hunting throughout. Is it all
British
Canada
Columbia.
or just BC?
No,
okay, it's just BC.
Yeah,
where they're everywhere, I guess. Like, what is it sort of like what we were talking about earlier, where these the bigger, denser populations that are so far removed from any of that stuff that they don't possibly understand it have too much sway? Is the polling way more split there, or do you really feel like you're being kind of overrun by, again, people who don't know better?
No, I think it's the people in cities that aren't connected with hunting and nature and the traditions are definitely anti-gun. My business partner was one of them, and working with me, he's 50 now, but I think I took him hunting for the first time when he was 45, and changed his views about guns. Because a lot of people that don't grow up with guns think, well, people don't need guns. No one needs a gun, right? And that's a big belief in a lot of homes. And I read something, I think it was Black Rifle Coffee Company that posted it, was the Second Amendment wasn't written for deer hunters. You don't need a magazine with 30 rounds to kill a deer. Well, that's not what the Second Amendment was for. It's to fight off the British.
Well, tyranny.
So it's to fight off a tyrannical
the
government.
Protection of a free state. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you look at it like that okay, well, the Second Amendment was written at a time when there were flintlocks. Well, now the government has this type of firepower. Why aren't the people allowed to have the same? Like, it's
and people that say the flintlock thing, I heard this, it was the guy that used to play Hercules. What is his name? Kevin Sorbo. He had this great tweet, and it was, okay, the Second Amendment was written in a time where people shot each other with flintlocks. They also wrote it with a quill and delivered it on horseback. So when you want to deliver your new gun legislation on horseback that you hand wrote with quill and ink, then we'll have the conversation. So it was great.
That's awesome.
Last thing, Chisum and I have a favorite turkey camp recipe. Not that you need any culinary advice from us, but we'll share it because I think our listeners
Awesome.
will like it.
I always like the recipes.
Well, thank you very much. We take the nasty bits, the heart, the gizzard, the liver. Our turkeys have this beautiful yellow fat on them a lot of the time. And this was Chisum's idea last year at camp. And now it's our favorite. We take that fat and we get it going in a skillet, put some peppers and onions in there. He preps the gizzards and we dice it up and throw it in there, put a little seasoning on it. This time we made tacos, but I mean, you can eat it right out of the bowl, but it's like a beautiful, nasty bits dish that, I think, Chisum, what's your favorite bite of that, of the three organs that are in there?
I'm kind of torn between the gizzard and the liver. I like the flavor of the lizard, but I like this sort of chewiness of the gizzard. So you know, it's all good to me. Yeah.
I ranked the liver first, the heart second, and the gizzard third. But the liver just like
hearts.
buttery, just melt in your mouth goodness. That was just it's awesome. So
actually, a spoonful of yellow fat's pretty darn good just by itself.
So what is your favorite turkey recipe? Wild turkey recipe?
One of the ones that's in my cookbook that I really love is I love to stuff the breast with morels and like wild onions or wild leeks, anything we find. Like, because when I'm turkey hunting, I'll stumble, you know, I may not get a turkey that day, but I'll stumble across a morel patch or something. So I'll be cutting morels, and then I'll shoot a turkey the next day and stuff the breast with the morels. And then I like using goat cheese as a cheese to stuff the breast. Kind of has like a nice tanginess to it. That works really well with turkey. So that recipe is in my cookbook, and that's probably one of my favorite ways to eat a turkey. And then, you know, using the legs too. You know, the guys that taught me how to turkey hunt told me, oh, you can't eat the legs. You know, you can make a great classic, you know, old school kind of move, but you know, you can definitely cook those legs. So that's you know, a nice little stew, or put them in the pressure cooker, whatever you do. It comes out beautiful.
So when you stuff the turkey breast, I guess you make like a lateral incision to open it into a pocket.
Yeah.
Right?
So you can either cut it right and like butterfly it and then roll it and tie it. But what I've been doing a lot lately is I just cut like a kind of a 1.5 to 2-inch hole in the back of like the fatty part of the breast, and just insert the knife all the way down and kind of open it up, and then just use my thumb and pack all the stuffing in that way.
Like I said, I've got the cookbook, and I've got a breast sitting in there by itself. I've got 4 whole birds plucked, frozen, and then the last 1 or 2 quartered and, you know, breasted out. So I've already cooked one of those breasts. I'll be trying that.
Cool.
Something to try for a little bit of you know, further south North American Tex-Mex or Mexican style. The Meat Eater guys, the original Meat Eater cookbook, they have a pozole in there, which is like a hominy stew. Hominy is, I'm sure you know, right? I mean, it's corn basically, like peeled corn. But yeah, so it's a basically a Mexican shredded meat stew with hominy and the turkey legs. It's a specific turkey leg recipe. Yeah, so
I haven't tried that one yet. So
it's super simple, man. It's like green salsa, the canned dice. I mean, what it calls for is basically all just canned and jarred stuff. Salsa, green chilies, like diced chilies. Man, I think that, you know, like garlic. You brown the legs. There's really the hominy. Maybe like one other ingredient. I've done it a couple times.
I skipped the leg browning, and it was just as good.
Yeah. So I mean, but I've done it a couple times where I've taken I've gotten like poblanos and roasted them on the grill and used those instead of the canned chilies and tomatillos, and did the same thing, roasted them, and it definitely takes it to a little bit, you know, another
elevates
level.
it a little bit. Nice.
Yeah, that stuff's good though. Everybody I've given it to is like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. So
nice,
super easy.
Well, awesome. You guys can follow Michael. He's at The Hunter Chef on Instagram. Do you have Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook, everywhere, Twitter, all the same, at The Hunter Chef. thehunterchef.com. You know, I got a couple of hats. We sell maple syrup. Our cookbooks are up there signed. You know, we ship worldwide. So thehunterchef.com.
Antler Kitchen and Bar.
Antler Kitchen Bar is our social handles as well.
Yeah, so like lots of great dishes being posted on there. If you're a foodie, especially if you like the wild game component, give them a follow as well. And then let's just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. You're working on a second cookbook, so
working on a second book. Little more of a direction to Over the Fire is all I'm
cool.
Sweet.
Yeah,
right on. Well, Michael, thank you so much for the time, brother. It's been great visiting with you, and
you as well.
I hope that the lockdown situation gets lifted, and that you guys get your civil liberties back, and that you can start freaking slinging those great dishes that you're making there at Antler Kitchen Bar.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Cable. Thanks, Chisum. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, good to meet you, Michael.
Take it easy,
guys. Yeah, have a good night.
All right.